All right, guys. So, real quick, I'm going to start off with the bell ringer today. I'll get back to the notes then and move on. But real quick, so on Friday, we talked about a lot of the corruption, of the Catholic Church and how the church was leading in ways, taking a path that, well, it didn't seem too good. No, no, no. All right. Anyway, so we did talk about the Catholic Church's influence during chapter one, the Middle Ages and evil times, and now we're seeing his power being utilized even more. So anyway, here we go. I want to talk about some of the corruption, some of the concerns that people might have had with the church during this time. Remember that invention. What was that invention we talked about so much this last topic? They, the printing press. Yeah, that's going to play a huge role in how word gets out, how we can maybe challenge the powers that be. I get it. I get it. You have a good time? Were you scared? Were you hiding behind Maddie the whole time? Sure. Oh, he's embarrassed. You guys, another minute here. We'll move on. Yeah. You want to make a pass, please? Go ahead. All right, guys, so the Catholic Church here. So what I was talking about on Thursday and Friday of last week with the Reformation, when you think of reform, right? Reformation, it kind of goes hand in hand. Well, we'll talk about it here with Martin Luther and how we'll see actions to try to push for this Reformation. Right? But first, well, I have to talk a little bit about the Catholic Church and how they maybe led people down a wrong path. Maybe how this strength of power was being abused to an extent where finally people were kicking back against it. And again, we won't see this kickback until we get what invention? What invention allows these ideas to spread? Go ahead. Yeah, the printing press, right? So that's why it's so important. That's why it's such a pivotal piece when it comes to this invention to change the game and bring on this Reformation that was really calling for a long time up to this point. All right, so the Catholic Church, what was so wrong about it? What was happening? All right, let's start off here with the popes. Were there more than one pope at one given time? What's this all about, Luna?
Multiple popes, which made it more confusing for people, because that you have one pope over here, another dead in the middle, and then a few over that way. And it's like, who do you follow?
Yeah, who do you listen to, right? So, yeah, it is confusing when you have three leaders that are, let's say, chosen, appointed by God, right? And one of the biggest confusions here is that typically you see the Catholic Church right here, the Pope residing in Rome, right here in Italy, right? Then all of a sudden, what country in Europe, in Western Europe, is saying, hey, we want one here, right? What would be a stronger bond to Catholicism here in this part of Europe? What? France? Yeah, France. Good job. So all of a sudden, with the Avignon papacy, they wanted to try to move Catholicism, the Pope's order, to France. All right. So as that happens, you think the people in Italy are happy? No, not at all, right? You're just breaking tradition. You're just breaking the means of, principles and religious beliefs and tradition you had for so long. So as the Pope just kind of picks up his bags and moves to France, well, it's only going to anger some people. And people are going to start to question the powers that be. Let's face it. Not only that, there's another Pope then eventually, right? At one point, you had three different popes. Where was the other one at? What empire did we talk about for a little bit? At this point, it's kind of falling apart. Why? The Byzantine Empire. Good job. So you had three popes, right? At one given time. So yeah, that's going to be chaotic. That's going to be confusing. People don't know what to believe. And there's a term I put out. I know I didn't have it as a vocab term, but it was called a separation, division. Remember that? It was called the Great What? Elena. Schism. Yeah, good job. So that term schism, Ms. O'Neill hates it. So if you guys really want to get on Ms. O'Neill's nerves, go up and say, hey, schism. And she'll just go, I hate this word. Anyway, so it is a division. It's a break apart, it's a separation. And well, you gotta imagine, even into people's minds, this is separating them from the powers that be, the Catholic Church. So it is confusing. It is hard to imagine what kind of person you gotta listen to, who you gotta listen to at this point of chaos with the Catholic Church. Right, also, what else? What else were these church officials doing that people really weren't too happy with, weren't too pleased with? Austin, give me one.
They were breaking law.
Oh, corruption? Yeah, they tell you one thing and do the exact opposite, right? They're hypocrites, right? There's a lot of hypocrisy with these Catholic Church officials. Man, Luna?
They would also say that if you did a certain sin, there were three ways to get out of it: charity work, paying it, or you were just done to hell.
Ooh, okay, yeah, we'll talk about the indulgences here soon. That's going to be the big one here that I want to focus on. But yeah, corruption, one of the biggest pieces here, why people started to look at it and say, wait a minute, right? They're not actually following the rules that, guidelines of celibacy here, either when it comes to relationships. They're all kind of messing around with people's lives. Unbelievable, I get it, all right? And then, yeah, when it comes to the drinking, what? They can't be drinking. That's not pure for these types of positions. These hypocrites, let me tell you. Right, what else? What else? What, babe?
Just bond position.
Ooh, all right, yeah, what is that term called? I had it in that presentation there. I said, hey, write these down here. Give you 1 second here. Should I pass it? You're right. You're good. I was looking for a term.
I feel like I have it.
Elena, go ahead. All right, we'll get the indulgences here soon, but when it comes to this buying position, right, of power, auctioning off to the highest bidder. What? Brody? Simon, yeah, good job. So when it comes down to it, they're not actually looking for these people within the church as being experienced based off merit, Meaning, hey, they have a high education, they have a strong allegiance with the church. No, 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 no. It's just, if they have money, they can buy their way into power. Is that the way to go about things, especially with the church? No, man, that's a problem. All right, good. What's the last one we talked about? What's the last one we talked about? Yeah, corruption, right? Simon, what else? Go ahead. Absenteeism, right? Good, good. So you have these leaders that are telling you what to do in your certain area that don't even live in your area, have no idea what kind of issues or problems you go through on a daily basis, right? They can't even point where you live out in the map. That's a problem. That's a problem. Are you gonna listen to someone that doesn't understand the way you live? No, right? With these folks here living in these areas, well, you gotta imagine right here, holy cow, why would the people listen to this hypocritical leader, this corrupt leader that lives way over here, that never visits your area, that never, discusses any of the problems that you face? Yeah, you won't do it, right? So those are problems, right? Problems that the people are explaining and expressing that need to be solved. Anyway, Elena, you brought it up. What was the term you said? Indulgences, right? What are indulgences? What are those? What are indulgences? Jason?
You wanna go to heaven, you gotta pay for it.
Oh, yes, good, good. Let's face it, everybody sins, right? All sins the same? Well, maybe, right? But when it comes down to it, if you want to get your sins forgiven, it doesn't matter about your good moral character. No, no. Doesn't matter about your ethics. No, no, no. You got some money. Oh, your sins forgiven. You'll find a place up in heaven here with just a little bit of a down payment. And they'll just give you a slip of paper and say, hey, your time in purgatory is limited, right? You won't actually have to suffer many, many days here at all with this little slip of paper. So when you die, bring that to purgatory with you. It's like, what? It's like, that's your payment. That's your receipt. You pay your indulgences. Unbelievable, right? So we're going to talk about some of these church officials, how they raise money through the means of trying to really pull a fast one on people with these indulgences. All right. Anyway, we're going to talk about Martin Luther here today and how he's going to call that out. Real quick, though, before we move on, here's a figure during the Reformation that really abused these indulgences. Holy cow. So I want to read through some of his quotes here. So one of your terms on Friday, and I put it up on Thursday even too. Johann Tetzel, this guy here, geez, this guy was a corrupt leader of the church, and he would do his darndest, right, to try to get people to pay up these indulgences. So here's a quick quote from Tetzel. Who would like to read it for us? Kate, go ahead.
As soon as gold in the basin
Yep.
rings, right then the soul to heaven springs.
Man, oh man. All right. So he's just really laying it out there. He's like, hey, you guys, with church, the offering, right? They turn around these days and these containers, right? And people will throw their cash in to help donate to the church to pay some expenses. But in this case here, right, he would travel place to place all around, and he would try to, really force people to just pay up for these indulgences. It's like, hey, it doesn't matter about your character. If you just throw some money in right now, well, already your entrance to heaven was already started, right? And people bought into it. Let's face it, could everybody read and write back then? No. Would anybody ever try to challenge a church? No, 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 right? So you gotta imagine, not only are you risking to be, if you're challenging a church, you're not only risking just maybe death, right? Being viewed as a heretic, but the rest of your years, millennium, millions of years in purgatory and hell, right? That's what's on the table here, right? So challenging the church was, man, something again that you not only face here on earth, but in purgatory, in hell, right? So a lot of people were scared to death of these church officials, and they use this power to the extreme. And indulgences is a good example of how they have this control, this power over the people. It's kind of unfortunate, right? Very unfortunate that these church officials would do that. All right, last one here I want to go over. So this is a little bit of a longer one, but a good one, So you gotta imagine, right? These church officials are going to use rhetoric to try to really display their power against the people and try to really get them to pay these indulgences. And here's another one from Tetzel. Who would like to read this one? Jason, yes.
Don't you hear the voices of your wailing dead parents and others who say, have mercy upon me, have mercy upon me, because we are in severe punishment.
Let's just stop there. Okay. I mean, gee, this guy is literally going to the extreme and saying, hey, your parents that are no longer with us here on earth, right? They're in purgatory. They're in hell right now, even, right? Burning up, right? You can hear their voices, right? I can anyway, you can't, right? So this Tesla guy being this churchly being, this religious leader, he's saying they're burning up in hell right now. The only way you can make sure that they're gonna be safe is if you just pay up. Wow, geez, okay, go ahead, Jason.
From this, you could redeem us with a small alms, and yet you do not want to do so. Open your ears, as the Father says to the Son, and the Mother to the Father. We have created you, fed you, cared for you, left you our temporal good.
Let's stop right there. So he's really building on this idea where the parents here are saying, hey, we left everything for you. You can't even help us out when we're burning up literally in hell, right? We need all the benefits we could get. The only way we're gonna get is if you just pay up. And again, was money just like floating around? Like, was everybody wealthy back then? No, right? So you gotta imagine people had literally nothing, nothing. They're starving to death, literally, as these church officials are having these great, grand, awesome parties with all the food you can even ask for. And they are literally pulling everything out, right, when it comes to wealth, when it comes to any type of income through these indulgences and making up these crazy stories, right, to really show their power and show their allegiance of these people. Unbelievable. Go ahead, Jason.
Why then are you so cruel and harsh? You may not want to save us. Little only takes a little. You let us lie in flames so that we only slowly come to the promised glory.
Oh, gosh, can you imagine? Can you imagine? This is literally a horror story, stuff going in someone's mind. And at the time, you have to listen to these church officials. You got it. You got it. Because if you didn't, well, you'd be viewed as a heretic. But at the same time, the bond of religion to everybody back then was so, so strong. And again, yeah, a lot of people went along with this. Well, here, we're going to talk today about someone stepping up to the plate and finally challenging these corrupt figures, right? The indulgences and how ridiculous they really are. Okay, we're going to talk about Martin Luther here today. All right, so here you go. Here are your terms. I'm going to zoom in here. I don't think we're going to get to the Diet of Worms today. I think I am zoomed in as much as I can. Anyway, we're going to just talk about Martin Luther, sola scriptura, okay, Protestantism, heretic, and recant, right? Just these terms here. All right, there's more to it, which we'll probably get to tomorrow, just based off the time. Right, so with Martin Luther, there's a lot to talk about. This guy was such an important figure to Western civilization when it comes to democracy, when it comes to voicing our opinions against even the strongest powers. He really stepped out, and well, that's why we talk about him so much. Some say he's probably one of the most important figures, right, when it comes to our civilization, and when it comes to democracy. So here you go. Freedom of speech, you name it. Bless you. All right, guys. So we're going to talk about these terms here through the lesson. Real quick with Martin Luther, just know that he is a German monk, right? A German friar, so to speak, right? So we already talked about monks and how they fit into the clergy, like the pyramid, right? And he's one that's educated, one that can read and write, and he's going to use this ability to call out the church and its abuses. Right, so when we talk about Martin Luther, one of the biggest things here I want you to know is that he's going to make his own viewpoints, his own perspective, based off of his relationship with God, but also with the Bible itself. So at this time, you think a lot of people were referring to the Bible before this printing press? No, they couldn't read and write, let's face it. But now at the printing press, as that comes around, people can make up their own viewpoints, their own perspectives of what the Bible actually says. Right? They don't have to rely on what these church officials state, right? Like the Pope here. No. Right? People can make their own opinion, make their own viewpoint, make their own perspective. All right. Sola Scriptura just means one with the Bible, right? So when you're thinking about this, this is Martin Luther's ability to state that people should have a relationship with God through the Bible, through their own interpretations, through their own readings, right? We shouldn't listen to what maybe this corrupt church official states about what the Bible says. No, right? Our love for God, right? Our religion, our perspective should be based solely on our connection with God, not through someone else, especially let's say a corrupt church official at the time like these many were. All right, Protestantism, okay? It literally is based off the word protest. Did you guys see that? Yeah, protest. Okay. So when it comes down to it, this form of religion Luther didn't really want to create a new religion here. He didn't. No, he wanted to just reform the Catholic Church and its corruption, right? It's hypocrisy. But as he does so, many people break away totally from the church. And this is going to start, unfortunately, a lot of violent rebellions, right? A lot of them. Anyway, with Protestantism, we'll focus a little bit more about it and its religious perspective compared to Catholicism. Right, and a lot of it's just kind of breaking away from these harsh traditions, right? These severe routines that the Catholic Church has. All right, heretic, we already talked about this. This is one that's challenging against an ideology, a viewpoint of power at be, and in this case, religion, right? A heretic's one that's challenging the Catholic Church. All right, and then recant. Recant, what do we got here for recant? What's that mean? Jason?
Take back.
Yeah, to take back, right? So we'll talk about here with the diet of worms towards the end of class today, maybe even tomorrow. The diet of worms is going to be this judicial hearing between Martin Luther and the church. And they're going to say, hey, recant, take back what you said. Martin Luther's, no, right? It goes against my conscience. It goes against my own opinion, my own beliefs, right? And if you do that, well, what do you really stand for then, right? So we'll talk about that today. All right, here we go. So Martin Luther, not that Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, Martin Luther, this guy here. All right, so when we're talking about Martin Luther, right, yeah, don't confuse it. I know many of you probably did when you're looking up the terms, and I definitely had that last week a bit. And with Martin Luther, he is this German monk, this German friar, and yeah, he can read and write, and that's very important when it comes to his perspective, his beliefs, and him actually stepping up to the plate and challenging the church. All right, anyway, so when it comes down to it, Germany wasn't Germany just yet. I get that, right? And when you look up on that map, this is the exact time frame that we're looking at, right? It says the Holy Roman Empire, right where Germany's at. There's so many kingdoms there. Anyway, he's from Saxony, right? Saxony right here, guys. Right here.
So more on the eastern side, it's actually kind of below where Berlin is, right? Anyway, with Saxony, this kingdom, we're gonna talk about its importance here soon. And how, well, he actually gets saved by this king of Saxony. And he has to do something in return for protection. And that is, you gotta translate the Bible. All right, so there's a lot of stories about Martin Luther, how he came to really challenge the church. Everybody could kind of see the church's corruption, especially these monks here. And they were not too pleased with it, not too happy. In any case, when it comes to his demeanor, this guy was a little angry at the world, it seems, right? But when it comes to this challenging the church's authority, he was really the first person to do so, right? I know I talked about Erasmus. Remember Erasmus, Praise of Folly, right? The satire, he called out the church officials, right? But he never really actually fully said that, did it? The printing press too wasn't just, happening just yet, right? Not everybody was enlightened by these new ideas. But eventually it'll happen here, and that occurs with Martin Luther. Anyway, Luther was inspired by Erasmus. He looked at his work, The Praise of Folly, and said, yeah, this guy's right, okay? This hypocrisy in the church, it's unbelievable. Right? Our religion maybe should actually be solely focused with the Bible itself. We should make our own interpretations, our own viewpoints, our own perspectives, right, of what religion should be and our relationship to God should be. Not through these corrupt church officials, right? These indulgences too are getting way out of hand. I just showed you that quote with Texel. Wasn't that a little crazy? Wasn't that invoking the fear of God, literally, into the people to pay up? Yeah. And again, not everybody had a lot of money back then, let's face it, right? So if you're paying up these indulgences, you're left with nothing to feed your own people. So yeah, the church officials, they do their own thing, right? They acted in ways of corruption. Right, they acted in ways of hypocrisy and would have these massive feasts while people were literally starving to death on the streets. So yeah, he was concerned. He was a little problematic with it. There is a story out there with lightning striking right next to him, right, and how lightning almost hit him, which I don't know if that was a sign of God. But the story goes, well, this lightning strike prompted him to say, you know what, I got to do something here. I actually got to call out the church for its issues, its problems. And he creates the 95 Theses. Okay, so with the 95 Theses, these arguments against the church. He writes them out in Latin. All right, again, could everybody read and write back then? No. The whole goal of this was first so these church officials could read it themselves. Right? He didn't want really this violent protests or revolutions to spark all over Europe, which ultimately will happen. You'll see the 30 Years' War happen. Right? You'll see the peasant revolt happen. And that's not what he wanted to do. He just wanted to reform the church from the inside out, right? He's not asking for a lot here. He doesn't want to bring Europe into chaos, but unfortunately it happens. So he nails it up on the door in Wittenberg, Germany. Okay, it's called Castle Church. Here's what it looks like today, which is pretty cool, right? Anyway, Martin Luther nails up the 95 Theses, so they say, right? And these are the arguments against the church. Okay, again, he wrote them in Latin, right? He wrote them down in Latin, hoping that the church officials would read them themselves. He thought, you know what? Okay, we got to reform it from the inside out. Anyway, it just kind of spirals out of control, though. And what happens with the 95 Theses is that it gets translated to German, right? And one invention just makes so many copies of the printing press, right? Sorry, taking your guys' thunder. So they spread this all around Germany, right? Again, Germany's not German, but all these kingdoms, right, speak German, right? And as the printing press is becoming a little bit more of a necessity within these towns, people start to read and write. People start to listen to what these people are saying about the corruption of the church. And yeah, that does bring on a lot of revolt. So if you're the Catholic Church, are you happy with Martin Luther for doing this? No, you view him as a what? What do you view him as? A heretic. Yes. All right, anyway, so what happens? What happens? Like I mentioned, when it comes to humanism, a lot of people within Germany are embracing it. They want to try to make up their own mindset. They don't want to just follow these corrupt, strange rules that were laid out by the church to try to make sure that they stay in power, let's face it. Right? They want to break away from this phenomenon. Right? They want to break away from the corruption of the church. Okay, but they didn't have a voice or a person to do so. Now all of a sudden you get a guy like Martin Luther step out and actually say what he means and say what his mindset is telling him. Now I can actually start maybe a rebellion. Maybe that can start people to actually think about what was actually going on the issues of concerns, the hypocrisy, the corruption, and step up for something they believe in. Anyway, a lot of people say, why didn't they just kill Martin Luther right on the spot? Well, there's a lot going on, all right? There's a lot going on. All right, there's actually a transition between the Pope, the leadership, okay? And there's a lot of issues going on, let's say, in parts of Spain, parts of France. So this allowed maybe Martin Luther to survive and not get killed right on the spot, being called a heretic, being a person that is going against the Catholic Church. So that's kind of why you see maybe this hesitancy. Maybe that's why you see an actual court hearing with Martin Luther and the Catholic Church itself. So thankfully that was going on, because they just would have killed him on the spot. Who knows what happened? Maybe even more violence, maybe even more chaos. Who knows? Anyway, so as Luther again is nailing up the 95 Theses, the printing press takes this, translates into German, and people are inspired by it. They are, right? They are calling out the church for what they are. You guys don't have to worry about too much what's going on here in the bottom part of the slide. Right? I'm not going to ask in detail about this, but I just want you to know that there was a transition between the two popes, right? One died and then one came in. And there's a lot of issues going on in Spain. So that's why there's actually a court hearing. Now, he wasn't just killed right on the spot. So I just want to get that to you, okay? And I'm going to move on here. So don't be like, oh, you're moving too fast. I'm not going to ask too many questions here on the bottom part of the slide. All right, so what's going on? Well, like I mentioned with Martin Luther, he does talk about the scripture. He says about how people's relationships should be with God themselves, right? And as this court hearing does take place, they call it the diet of worms. No, not diet of worms. Don't think that people are eating worms. No. The diet of worms. Okay. And when it comes to a diet, it just means judicial hearing. And Worms is the place in Germany where this takes place. So I know it might be confusing. We'll talk about it here soon or tomorrow. But as you can see, Martin Luther says the main thing, sola scriptura. Sola scriptura. People should have a relationship with the Bible and the God through their own means. Right? Not through these corrupt Catholic Church officials. No. All right, we'll talk more about Martin Luther tomorrow. See us.